Hi everyone, it's Char. Welcome back to my channel, Crafting Up a Storm. Today I have several pineapple themed projects for you to decorate your tiered trays. I have done several fruit themed videos the last couple of weeks and I had a lot of pineapple ideas. So hopefully you get inspired by one of these and it's something that you can use to decorate your home. Let's get crafting. For this project, I found this really cute luminary at the thrift store, so I'm going to clean it up really well. It was just a little plain to me, so I'm going to tape off the top and the bottom, and using Waverly chalk paint in plaster, I'll paint the very top of it white and the very bottom white as well. When I'm painting, I just start on the tape and move off of it. That way it keeps the paint from going underneath the tape. Since this is metal, the tape really does seal very well to this can. Now I'm going to add some twine to the handle and just cover it up. It just takes time to wrap it around. I didn't glue it very often. I just tried to wrap it pretty tight and put a dab of glue every so often. Just tried to make sure the each loop was right next to each other. Once that was covered, I burnt off the hairs with the lighter. Removed the tape pieces. I thought this added a little bit of decoration and color to it. Very simple, nothing fancy. And then I decided to do a twine band around each of the white areas, the top and the bottom. Put a dot of glue like maybe every 3 inches or so, and then wrapped the twine around it. Same process, burning off those little fibers. Put the handle right back on it, and this one's done. You could put a candle inside or even some greenery. Very simple. For this easy project, I picked up a pineapple form at Dollar Tree, and it has some glitter tinsel, and I just pushed the end back through and unwrapped all the tinsel from the form. I want to use this yellow yarn. It's a little thin, so I'm going to braid it. And I thought I would show you a tutorial on how to braid in case you don't know. So I used these different colored strands of yarn to be able to show you a little easier in my tutorial. I doubled each strand, so I have 2 pieces of yarn for each strand, and you always want to take an outside strand and cross it over the middle. So I took the blue outside and crossed it over the beige. Now the blue is in the middle. So I'm going to alternate, and I'm going to take the pink, cross it over the blue. Now the pink is in the middle. Now I'm going to do beige over pink, blue over beige, pink over blue, beige over pink. And just keep it straight and even and tight. It's easier when you have control and you have your 2 hands on each outside strand and you just twist and flip it over. So I'm twisting beige over pink, blue over beige, pink over blue, beige over pink, blue over beige, pink over blue, beige, blue. Hopefully you guys get the hang of it. I'm gluing the form back together. I'm putting the leaves at the top. This form snaps together, but it doesn't hold really well, which is why I'm adding the hot glue. I put a little hot glue around the top edge of the leaf and around the form a little bit, and I'll put that back together. And then once I have it together, I used some needle nose pliers and I just snapped the little snaps back in place. I started to glue my braided yarn to it and realized that some of the little notches or knobs that stick up poked up through the yarn, so I wanted to take some of those down and take them off. So I went around and trimmed those. Now I'm going around my form, and you'll notice these braces or ribs up the side. One will be plain and the other will be the knobbed rib. So I put hot glue on the plain brace or rib because the yarn catches in the knob for the other rib. I kept the braid nice and flat and glued it down and just kept going around. Once I got to the very top, I put some glue up around where the leaves are at. And it might have been easier to start at the top, but it was okay. I believe I used a pencil to kind of poke the yarn up into the glue and make sure it stayed, and I went all the way up to those leaves. Once that was done, I wanted some decoration, so I used some embroidery floss, and I kept it 6 strands. I want it to be nice and thick. And I just made an X over the rib underneath. And I just felt it with my needle. I didn't do anything perfect. And I got a knot, but luckily I got that out. And then I would skip a rib and go to the next one and crisscross. I think my needle pulled off. And just crisscross across the rib. I tried to keep them even. That one just wasn't quite high enough, so I went up to the next strand. But you know me, it does not have to be perfect. I skipped a rib and went to the next one and crisscrossed. This wasn't too difficult. I believe I was able to get 3 rows. The next row I staggered the crisscross and went crisscross on the rib that I skipped. It was easy up until the last row up at the top was a little difficult because it was difficult to get the needle up inside the pineapple. So it wasn't impossible though. It was just a little more difficult. But I thought it came out cute. Honestly, this is one of my favorite fruit projects. The only problem is I know it may be difficult for you guys to be able to recreate because this is a vase I found at the thrift store. I have no idea what was in this, but it just cried pineapple to me. So I cleaned it up really good and I coated it with Waverly chalk paint in yellow. I did end up putting 2 or 3 coats on it just to make sure it was a good and solid coverage. With all this detail and depth on it, and it was a little harder to make sure I got all of it covered, so it did take several coats, but I got it covered up. And then I took some Waverly chalk paint in the hazelnut. I watered it down quite a bit and I just did a wash over it. I wanted just kind of to add that into the crevices to get that slightly brown color to show up. I just kept going through until I got it to where I wanted it. It was a wash over the yellow, so it did kind of soften that yellow a little bit, but then it also stayed in those crevices as well. Now I'm going to go over with a really generous supply of Mod Podge because I want to coat it really well. Before I did the Mod Podge, I did have some scratches on the top, but that was okay because I'm going to cover this with twine. My twine is a little thin, so it does take quite some time to keep wrapping it around, but I didn't have to keep gluing constantly because as long as I did a good tight twist on it, I could get it going. Up until I got to the wider parts. When I got to the wide part on toward the top, I needed to use more glue to hold it in place. But I just kept going around and twisting it around and getting a good solid cover of this twine at the top. And it's such a cute, funny little vase that, or bottle, I don't know. I don't know what it was originally for, but I just thought it was so perfect. And look like a pineapple. And so I encourage you, when you go to the thrift store and you see different things, look at the shape rather than the color of it or a decoration of it or the state that it's in right then. Look at it and see what it could be. Sometimes turning things upside down, sometimes looking at it differently really helps, and you can find pieces that are unique that you could make into something different. I burnt the fringes off all that twine. I like doing it with the lighter. You don't have to. I usually have water really close to me just in case. But if anybody's worried about it, you don't have to do that this section. I like it because it also kind of colors the jute twine a little bit too. Now I picked up a succulent at the Dollar Tree. And I liked this particular one because it looks like the top of a pineapple to me. I filled my little vase with some pieces of styrofoam. It was a little hard because the neck is a little thin, and trying to get it down into the wider bottom, I had to cut it small. Once I had it in there, I just pushed that succulent in the top, and there's my pineapple. It was so cute. This is one of my favorite pieces. I picked up some of the silver spoons in the party section at Dollar Tree. They're smaller size spoons. They're not the full size plastic spoons. I needed them to be yellow, so I painted them yellow with a nice thick layer of chalk paint, but it only took one coat. I didn't show it, but I just snapped the handle off, leaving a little bit of the stem. I used some wire cutters. It's easier to glue down and put the glue where the handle starts. I picked this little cup up from Dollar Tree as well, and it has gold at the bottom, which was nice. I didn't have to go all the way down to the bottom. Once I got to the very top, I just staggered the rows of petals for the pineapple look, and once I got to the very top, I was able to do this last row with the little bit of handle on it. And for the very top row, I'll show you here in a minute once all these are on. I took my wire cutters and I just cut them. I cut more into the rounded spoon part to be able to do the very, very last row. And I will show you that they did want to split just a little when I cut them. You'll see on each of them when I cut them. Eventually. I did add some extra glue to make sure that top row was down good. Here I'm just snipping the all the handle part off, and you'll see it kind of splits, but they never broke in two, and you can't even notice it once they're glued down. So I put some extra hot glue and then just stuck the spoon onto the hot glue, and that got me that last row and all of the glass covered. To finish off the edge, I used some nautical rope from Dollar Tree. I just glued a layer around the top. Trimmed that off. And glued that edge down real good, and then realized I wanted to do another row. So I started in the same place and I just did one more row underneath that. Then I put some styrofoam in it, and I have these fern fronds from Dollar Tree as well. They're in the floral section, but they're not on a stem. They're in a package. And I just arranged those on there. I thought they looked kind of nice and dark green. I don't have footage of it, but I did add a very bright flower to it. You'll see it in my end picture. I found these really cute candle holders at Dollar Tree, and I thought the yellow one looked very pineapple shaped. So I did do a strawberry as well, but I'm going to show you how I decorated the pineapple one for this video since we're concentrating on pineapple. I used some green acrylic paint, and I painted some leafy lines at the top. It it doesn't want to show too well, so I did start to use a bit heavier, thicker amount of paint on my brush, and I do believe I went back over it a couple of times. And that gave me a little bit more of that green. You can see here I used a little bit thicker amount. I did paint up the side of that little candle holder as well, so that from the side you can see the green as well. These were in, I believe, in the garden section at Dollar Tree. I just kept adding layers until I had it dark enough. You can add some darker green as well to add some dimension to your greenery. I decided then to take a very small thin brush and do some little V's with black paint. You'll notice my V's are upside down on the first petal, and I realized I wanted them to be facing this way. I was going to go back and maybe with some nail polish remover or something take those off, but to be honest, it's so not noticeable after all of these are done. So in my pictures you'll see that one petal that has upside down V's. I went around and did little pineapple decorations on all of them. And then I went around the very edge with a little bit of the black acrylic paint as well to kind of individualize each little shape. What do you think? I think they look like little pineapple decorations, but I think my daughter feels that they still look like a flower very much. So you decide. I picked up a square glass vase at Dollar Tree, and I generously coated it with yellow maize chalk paint. I believe I did a couple of coats to make sure it was covered well. Once I had that covered, I used Waverly chalk paint in truffle, and I made my V shape to decorate it like a pineapple. I wanted to coat it really well with Mod Podge. I also picked up these wooden stickers. The package had a glittery pineapple, regular wooden pineapple, and little palm trees. I used the wooden pineapple shape. There were 3. I could just use 3 and not worry about the back of the vase. I wanted to paint them though, so I used a little green acrylic paint and I painted the leafy areas on the pineapple, and then some yellow. I can't remember if I think I used a different color paint than the Waverly chalk paint in maize. I think I used a acrylic yellow paint. Yeah, and painted the pineapple. To decorate these pineapples, I took a ruler and I just did some random lines as long as I had them all facing the same way, and in between some of the lines I would put a dot. This was the way I decorated these little pineapples. I had picked up some green raffia from Dollar Tree as well, and I tied it around the top of my vase. I have to admit, guys, this project, I like it, but I think I could have stopped right here and been fine with it. I did go ahead and add my little pineapples to the side. I think they get a little lost though, and then they cover up the decoration, the little V decorations. And apparently that wasn't even enough. I decided to put a twine bow on the top of the green raffia. Again, you can add or subtract as much as you like. I honestly think the just the green raffia around it is what I preferred after I got it all done. I clipped the raffia so that it was just straight strands instead of a bow. And now I added some bright flowers to it. Definitely a cheery little vase. I hope you were inspired by some of these pineapple themed projects. And if you enjoyed these fruity summery projects, I will leave a link to some other fruit themed videos that you can watch as well. If you liked this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing. I'd love to have you as part of the crafty family. Have a great day, and as always, keep crafting.